Senator Cotton's not having it. Like, he went on the weekend show. You know, NBC's got this Meet the Press show that used to be quite legendary, but has gone downhill in more ways than one. And he's like, yeah, that's not right, what you're saying. The anchor tried to allege that somehow this is misinformation, any idea that somehow any money might have been used for migrants. Now FEMA's out of money. Like, that couldn't possibly be the case, that they actually spent all the money. And they're calling out the New York Post and others. Of course, the New York Post has had this right before. Shall we say? I do believe the New York Post got its Twitter account shut down because one New York Post was at odds with the likes of the 51X spooks that said, no, there's nothing to see here in terms of Hunter Biden's laptop. But you know what? The New York Post was right. And here's the deal. We know the money was spent. You can sit there and argue all day long that it wasn't redirected. We're not saying it was redirected. We're saying you spent the freaking money, okay? There's no money left. You told us that. You have no cash on hand to help people. $750. I'm sorry, if you wanted to help, Kamala Harris, if you wanted to help, you know you could, but you're too busy doing the Call Me Daddy podcast. Here's Tom Cotton.
My broader question to you, I think, is about this misinformation. Do you think this is a time to put falsehoods aside, like the idea that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants, which is just not true?
Well, it is true that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been spending billions of dollars on migrants. Now, I understand some people say they're separate funds, but we just passed a short-term spending bill. It's very common for the administration to come and ask for permission to move money between funds, especially to prepare for emergencies. And second, I would note that this administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities. When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find the money.
And that's frightening. Because what do you think your federal government's there for? But to protect you, to secure the borders, dare I say, and to make sure that when all ATLL breaks loose, you know what, that someone's there and someone's got your back. And yet Kamala can't help you? What good is she? In all seriousness, what good is she? Now you have to think about something else. You have to think about the political implications of this. I hate to have to go here, but David Axelrod, who ran Obama's campaign, he brought it up. This sound came out on Friday. I was just stunned. Because to boil this down, the aid to victims of Hurricane Helene, the victims that are coming from Milton, to boil this down to politics is pretty damn disgusting. And yet this is exactly where he went. And he talked about, I think, what all of us fear. This idea that somehow the government is only there to help those that are in their corner. I've seen it before. I've seen it in Venezuela. I couldn't believe this. You know, people were describing to me how, for example, you'd get a box of food and staples, et cetera, every week delivered to you by the Maduro administration, but only provided that you were part of the club, right? You sign a paper, you support Maduro. You could get free housing, can get free housing in Venezuela, provided no one in your building votes for anyone other than Maduro. So if you get the sense and anybody in your building might be voting for the opposition, you need to hurry them out and expose them quickly because you might lose your housing. I mean, this is kind of scary stuff, right? This is a slippery slope. Anyway, before we totally go there, let's listen to David Axelrod, who just lays it right out. Okay, well, North Carolina may not be as close as we thought because the Kamala Harris people are going to vote. And the Trump people have been flooded out of their homes and can't get back.
State in the country. Here's my question about North Carolina. You had these killer storms, which, by the way, was a third big story this week.
Yes,
these
another
storms. And there's a lot of displacement in western North Carolina. Now, Asheville is a blue dot in that area.
I was going to say,
Asheville's Republican voters there.
Yeah.
But those voters in Asheville are they're the kind of voters who will figure out a way to vote. They're upscale kind of liberal voters, and they're probably going to figure out a way to vote. I'm not sure a bunch of these folks who've had their homes and lives destroyed elsewhere in Western North Carolina in the mountains there are going to be as easy to wrangle for the Trump campaign. So
Right.
that's I don't know how that's all going to play out, but it's an unpredictable element in North Carolina that has made it maybe a little more interesting. But just in this.
Interesting. It's made it more interesting. It makes it more likely that Kamala Harris might actually win in North Carolina because the Trump voters have been flooded out of their homes and she's not there to help them. FEMA's not there to help them. FEMA spent all the money. It's out of money. It can't help them. This is what is truly feared, right? This is the worst case scenario. This is why Elon Musk keeps saying this could be the last election.